You know what? Cool and calm defines three things in this universe. The first is moon, the second is my nature, and the third is my name. Moon in Sanskrit is called as Shashank. That's exactly my name with the prefix, Dr. Shashank. Before this lockdown, a small tiny girl happened to walk down to my clinic with her parents. While I was busy doing my consultation, she started playing with this. This is a stethoscope. Later, when I finished my consultation, she came up to me and she asked, "Is this your toy, doctor? Do you play with this?" I said, "Yes. Me and my patients often play with this. I use this to see what's happening inside them." You know, you have realized there's no such handy toy to check how your poultry is doing. That brings us to our topic of hygiene and safety standard. As in, why hygiene and safety standards so important before we consume chicken? Because we never know what comes as an add-on with your chicken. Well, I'm an Ayush doctor working under Ministry of Ayush, and I'm director cum CMO at Vitality Holistic Health Center, Nehru, Navi Mumbai. So let me take you to a journey where a bird once met a human. So that brings us to our first slide. It all starts from the point of purchase. It all starts from the point of your purchase. Point of purchase is from where you have purchased your poultry. You have to make sure that the place is well maintained, it's clean and hygienic. Poultry retailers are working under FSI licensing. Make sure that he's following all the safety standards, clean cutting board, bird slaughtering standard, clean knife, wearing a mask and apron, etc. So what all you need to do before you process your chicken, before you process your raw chicken, before you cook your chicken, how to cook your chicken, how to store your cooked chicken, how to store your raw chicken, we'll be looking onto this in this presentation. So we'll move on to the next slide. So once you get your raw chicken, so you should never wash that poultry under tap water. I mean, you should never wash your poultry under running tap water as it may cause cross contamination and spread of food poisoning bacteria. Your bacteria can spread up to 80 centimeters from the sink. These food poisoning bacteria can land on anything from sink to utensils to chopping board to knives to the vessels kept nearby to your spoon to your plates, etc. So these bacteria, something like E. coli or Salmonella, even if you have washed your chicken properly, these may contaminate your knife or your chopping board, which can recontaminate your chicken while you're processing the raw meat. So you need to be very careful. You shouldn't wash your poultry under tap water. So how you need to wash? We'll move on to the next slide. It has got a photo with a white chopping board. You can notice the color. The chopping board has a white color. The knife is of black color. There are some vegetables kept on the chopping board, and there's a meat piece. So once you chop your meat with the knife and you use that same knife to chop your vegetables, you will cross contaminate your vegetables with your raw meat. So what you need to do? So Food Hygienic Act of 1995 says use correct color coded chopping boards and knives. Something like if you are processing your raw meat, you need to use a red coded color, something like a red chopping board. If you are processing your salads or your fruits or your vegetables, you need to have a different color coded chopping board and your knife. We'll move on to the next slide. So once you get your raw chicken home, first thing before you touch your chicken, you need to wash your hands with a soap over a minute or 70% alcohol-based sanitizer before handling the food stuff. Then you need to wash or soak your chicken in hot water and allow it to remain there for 10 to 15 minutes. And then you have to clean your birds slowly by avoiding spillage. Okay, so once your cleaning process is done, the next process comes to marination. So how do you marinate? Take a bowl, put your chicken into the marinating bowl, marinate it with turmeric, salt, black pepper, and lemon. Now all the dirty vessels which you have been using, like something like chopping boards or knife or the utensils which you have used to wash your raw chicken, should be cleaned with boiling water or 100 ppm of chlorine, that is 10 ml of chlorine in at least 10 liters of water. Again, before you cook, before you handle your marinated chicken, you need to wash your hands nicely with 70% alcohol based sanitizer or a soap over a minute. Okay, so that we'll move on to the next slide and we'll see. So what it says, what to notice in raw chicken. So once you get your raw chicken, it should be pink in color. It should not be like brownish in color, or it shouldn't have any injury or wound marks on the body. There shouldn't be any excess slime formation. Those sticky slime formation shouldn't be any excess. When we squeeze the flesh, water should not come out, and there shouldn't be any smell of medicine. We'll move on to the next slide. It says a cold holding temperature, because something like when you accept your poultry from a cold storage, you need to be very sure that the retailer is maintaining the temperature of the cold storage below 5 degrees, that is 41 degrees of Fahrenheit. We'll move on to the next slide. So suppose you purchase your fish, the odor of the fish shouldn't be stale. The body should not have any injury or wound marks. The ventral portion should be clean. Eyes should be crystalline and not slimy. Gills should be fresh and pink in color. If you purchase your meat, the color should not have turned black. It should be pink, brown or pinkish brown in color. We'll move on to the next slide. So it says about cooking standards. It says about cooking standard, hot holding, something called as hot holding. So the optimum temperature of hot holding is 60, above 60 degrees of Celsius, that is 140 degrees of Fahrenheit. So in between 60 to 100 degrees of Celsius, bacteria are destroyed completely. Okay, so if your cooking standard is below 50 degrees to 60 degrees, bacteria can grow very quickly. And if you are storing your chicken, your cooked chicken or your raw chicken below 0 degrees to minus 18 degrees, there will be no bacterial growth at all. We'll move on to the next slide. So now we'll see the temperature guidelines, the temperature of the deepest part while cooking. So you need to make sure the temperature of the deepest part of chicken, something like if you're cooking your leg piece, the deepest part where the bone comes, the core of the chicken should reach a maximum temperature of 165 degrees Fahrenheit, that is 74 degrees of Celsius. Your egg should reach around 160 degrees of Fahrenheit. Seafood should reach around 145 degrees of Fahrenheit. Pork, lamb should reach around 160 degrees of Fahrenheit. Okay. There's a very funny thing which I'm going to tell you. Indians shouldn't worry much about this cooking temperature standards, because we generally overcook our food. So we'll come to the next slide, which says a temperature graph, like something like a temperature danger zone, a cold food zone, a frozen food zone, a hot food zone. So what basically is all this? The temperature zone is between 5 degrees and 60 degrees, where it is easiest for the harmful bacteria to grow in the food, something like a room temperature. If you take your raw chicken, keep it at a room temperature for more than prescribed hours, it will start growing bacteria. So what you need to do, minimize the time that food spends at this temperature in order to keep the food safe, that is 5 degrees to 60 degrees. Refrigerate your food, need to be kept at 5 degrees or below. Hot food needs to be kept at 60 degrees or above. Okay, so we'll move on to the next slide. Color change. So like something like I'm telling you about all these temperature guidelines, cooking standard, but how do you measure the temperature? Not everyone will have a proper meat sensing thermometers at home. So what you need to do, there's a simple thing. See, there's a in that slide there are three photos: the raw chicken, half cooked chicken, and completely cooked chicken. So the temperature change will cause the chicken to turn from pink to white if it is cooked properly, cooked above 160 degrees of Fahrenheit, the color of the deepest part of the chicken will turn from pink to white. So that is the guide. That is the guide you need to follow at home to make sure that your chicken is cooked properly, plus it is free from bacteria, all the kind of bacteria. We'll move on to the next slide, which says cooked chicken. Suppose you have got a lot of chicken, you are like very hungry, you thought ki I can eat this much of chicken, but after finishing your plate, there's some leftover, something like cooked chicken is left over. So what you need to do, how you need to store that cooked chicken? So cooked chicken or perishable should not be held for more than 2 hours at room temperature of about 32 degrees Celsius or below, around 32 degrees Celsius or below, and for not more than 1 hour when the temperature is 32 degrees and above. So you can see the picture on the right side, which says a hot holding zone, that is above 60 degrees. So when you are serving your chicken at your plate, you should make sure it's above 60 degrees, and you should not hold the chicken for more than 2 hours at the prescribed temperature, or more than 1 hour at the prescribed temperature. The danger zone, that is what you need to worry about. Your chicken at 4 degrees to 60 degrees will have a bacterial growth, and the bacteria will multiply very fast. And suppose if you have something left over, you need to store that chicken below 4 degrees of Celsius. So we'll move on to the next slide, which says cooked poultry needs lower temperature than raw meat to keep it away from bacteria. You got my point. Cooked poultry, something like you have cooked your chicken, needs a even lower temperature than the raw meat to keep it away from bacteria. So you need to freeze your cooked chicken. You need to keep that chicken in the freezing plate of your refrigerator. And then we'll come to the next point, that says chilling or freezing is not a technology to store the meat for long time. Something like you have got raw chicken, or if you have cooked chicken, and after listening to all this presentation, you think that if you keep your cooked chicken or raw chicken in your freezer for like 1 month or 2 months or 3 months, and then you can use it again, that is not my point. The point is, it's a technology to store the meat safe without bacterial growth. The meat will be safe. It will be without bacterial growth, but it will not be very good while eating. It will become a little hard. It will become a stale. It will have a smell. So you need to make sure that you are using these guidelines at a good level. Ensure the cooked chicken is stored at optimum temperature and for the prescribed duration only. We'll move on to the next slide. So all these safety standards, hygienic standard, whatever I have told you, these are from under the guidelines from FSI, Food Safety and Standard Authority of India, Codex Alimentaris, the Food Code, and the US FDA, the Food and Drug Administration.